and welcome to this edition of News on the Hour. I'm Rukma with you, and over the next 1 hour we'll be taking a look at all the stories that are making headlines across India and the world at this hour, focusing on the Prime Minister and his visit in the United States of America. The first leg of his journey is over. Moving on to the second leg, all eyes on his UN General Assembly address later in the day. All that and more. Also, news from other parts of the world across the globe, sports, business and much, much more. But first, here are the headlines. PM Modi to address 76th session of UN General Assembly later today. This is Prime Minister Modi's second visit to the UN General Assembly in about 2 years. Quad Summit takes place in Washington, D.C. In his address, Prime Minister Narendra Modi terms the summit historic, says Quad is a force for global good. US President Joe Biden, Australia's Premier Scott Morrison and Japan PM Suga also addressed the summit. Member nations at the Quad Summit advocate for an open and free Indo-Pacific region. Summit discusses Indo-Pacific, combating COVID-19, defense cooperation among a host of several regional and global issues. Foreign Secretary talks about Pakistan's role behind promoting terrorism in Afghanistan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden hold first ever in-person bilateral meeting. Delegation level talks also held. PM Modi stresses on importance of third decade in bilateral ties, says US leadership will certainly play an important role in how the decade is shaped, as its seeds have been sown for an even stronger friendship between India and the United States. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to deliver video address at Global Citizen Live today. 24-hour event with aim to end poverty will involve live events in major cities, including Mumbai, New York, Paris and others. Union Home and Cooperative Minister Amit Shah to address country's first conference of cooperatives in New Delhi today. Conference aims to share government's vision and outline the roadmap for development of cooperative sector. And 5-day Himalayan Film Festival begins in Leh. Union Minister Anurag Singh Thakur announces J&K and Ladakh soon to be connected with a film training institute. Welcome once again. In our top story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached New York from Washington, D.C., where he is scheduled to address the 76th session of the UN General Assembly later today. This is Prime Minister Modi's second visit to the UN General Assembly in nearly 2 years. PM Modi is expected to raise issues which include the COVID pandemic and vaccine resilience, among others. He is also expected to speak on global recovery, the reboot of the global economy post the pandemic. Well, Prime Minister there waving to those who are there to welcome him as he reached New York, Lawton New York Palace. He's embarking there as he arrived in New York just a short while back after the first leg of his visit in Washington, D.C., the Quad Summit and his bilateral meeting with US President Joe Biden. And the Prime Minister reached Lawton New York Palace, where he was given a grand welcome on arrival. The PM met the people who were waiting for him as they cheered and chanted Vande Mataram and Bharat Mata Ki Jai outside the hotel in New York. The Indian diaspora welcomed Prime Minister outside the hotel and expressed happiness saying they were delighted to meet the Prime Minister. They also said that Prime Minister Modi is their idol and that they were fortunate to be able to greet him in person.
बहुत खुश हैं क्योंकि हीरो हैं वो हमारे, कहां से कहां देश को लेके गए हैं। वेरी प्राउड कि हम उनसे आज मिल पाए हैं। ये हमारा सौभाग्य है कि हमें उनके दर्शन हुए हैं।
आदर्श है हमारे, जैसे इन्होंने अभी कहा हीरो हैं, सो बेसब्री से कब से इंतजार कर रहे थे उनका। बहुत अच्छा लगा, इतने पास से देखने को मिला, सो बहुत ज्यादा प्रसन्नता हुई।
बहुत सफल हुआ है आज क्वाड का जो भी मीटिंग्स है और या सीईओज के साथ, बिजनेस सीईओज के साथ जो भी हुआ है, and I am thinking it will be a very successful and fruitful visit here.
And it's very fortunate to see all this happening and India being we are all very proud of him.
जो participation Quad Summit के अलावा Quad Summit में one of the main things they stressed upon is healthcare. Healthcare के जो covaxin और all those made in India का जो भी मामला है, plus export करने का, plus also taking care of the healthcare, holistic health. मोदी जी ने बहुत ज़्यादा they put a whole big formula for taking care of health to the last mile.
अब हम आज मोदी से मिले तो मोदी जी इतना बड़ा महान देश का नेता है और इधर अमेरिका में आके इतना गौरव हम लेते हैं कि अपने प्रधानमंत्री जो इधर आते हैं और हमसे मिलते हैं और हाथ मिलाते हैं और ऐसे कैसे हो ऐसा पूछते हैं, तो हमें लिए तो उसको क्या बोलते हैं, धन्यवाद करने का कोई शब्द ही नहीं है। इतना मोदी जी को हम मानते हैं और देश की शान है।
And our correspondent Ramesh Ramachandran gives us an insight into the upcoming address of Prime Minister Modi at the UN General Assembly.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is among the 100-odd world leaders who will address the United Nations General Assembly's 76th session here at the UN building right behind me in New York. Now, this would be his second visit to the UNGA in about 2 years. The last time he spoke at the UNGA was in 2019, the year he was re-elected for a second term in office. Now, among the issues the PM can be expected to raise in his address here at the UNGA include COVID-19 pandemic, vaccines. Remember, India decided to resume supply of vaccines to the needy countries in the region and beyond.
There's no doubt that combating COVID-19 is right on top of the agenda of the UN General Assembly. And this is particularly so because many of the developing countries have not had any equitable access to vaccine. On the question of combating climate change, once again, India has been at the forefront of climate action. And as you know, we are the only country in the G20 which has got a credible pathway to achieve the Paris targets. And I think this is once again widely recognized. And we will therefore be pushing for climate action.
The issue of global recovery, economic recovery or reboot of the global economy from the pandemic, and also supply chain resilience. Now, this is an issue of immense importance to India because many countries around the world have had an over-dependence on China during the pandemic, and that's had a devastating impact on many economies around the world. Also, multilateral reforms of the UN in particular and the UN Security Council as well. Remember, India is among the handful of countries, including Germany, Japan and Brazil, who are actually pushing for UNSC reform as quickly as possible.
On the question of combating terrorism, I mean, you know very well, we have been probably one of the strongest proponents of combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. And when the discussion on the global counter-terror strategy took place a couple of months ago, once again, India's contribution was extremely important in shaping the contours of counter-terrorist strategy. And we took a very active part. And also in the Security Council, we are members of the Security Council.
Right.
And we have taken a lead in this particular direction. And therefore, I think this once again will be right at the top of our agenda.
So these are some of the issues that the PM can be expected to raise in his address here at the UNGA come Saturday, 25th September. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran with my camera person Saurabh Shukla in New York for DD India.
Meanwhile, India, in its right of reply, has slammed Pakistan PM Imran Khan for his speech at the UN General Assembly. First Secretary Sneha Dubey also said that this is a country that has been globally recognized as openly supporting, training, financing and arming terrorists as a matter of state policy. It was also highlighted that Osama bin Laden was glorified as a martyr by Pakistani leaders.
We keep hearing that Pakistan is a victim of terrorism. This is the country which is an arsonist disguising itself as a firefighter. Pakistan nurtures terrorists in their backyard in the hope that they will only harm their neighbors. Our region, in fact, the entire world, has suffered because of their policies. On the other hand, they are trying to cover up sectarian violence in their country as acts of terror.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the Quad will work in the role of a force for global good. He asserted that the cooperation among the four member countries, which include India, the United States, Australia and Japan, will ensure peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. PM Modi, in his opening remarks at the Quad leaders meeting, said that he expressed his gratitude to President Joe Biden for the first in-person Quad meeting.
हमारा क्वाड एक तरह से फोर्स फॉर ग्लोबल गुड की भूमिका में काम करेगा। मुझे विश्वास है क्वाड में हमारा सहयोग इंडो पैसिफिक में और विश्व में शांति और समृद्धि सुनिश्चित करेगा।
First ever in-person Quad summit, a new chapter of global welfare. Taking forward India's ancient philosophy of good for all, Prime Minister Modi said that he firmly believed that the grouping of four democracies would act as a force for global good and ensure peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific as well as the entire world. At the invitation of President Joe Biden, Prime Minister Modi and his counterparts Scott Morrison from Australia and Yoshida Suga from Japan met at the White House. Prime Minister Modi thanked US President Biden for calling the meeting. He said that the Quad vaccine initiative will greatly help the Indo-Pacific countries. Referring to shared democratic values, Prime Minister Modi said that the Quad group has decided to move forward with a positive thinking and positive approach.
अपनी साझा डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज के आधार पर क्वाड ने पॉजिटिव सोच, पॉजिटिव अप्रोच के साथ आगे बढ़ने का निर्णय लिया है। सप्लाई चेन हो या वैश्विक सुरक्षा हो, क्लाइमेट एक्शन हो या कोविड रिस्पांस या फिर टेक्नोलॉजी में सहयोग, इन सभी विषयों पर मुझे अपने साथियों से चर्चा करते बहुत खुशी होगी।
US President Joe Biden expressed confidence in a free and open Indo-Pacific region. He also said that the plan for global vaccination against COVID-19 is on track.
Our vaccine initiative is on track to produce an additional 1 billion doses of vaccine in India to boost global supply. And today, we're also launching a new Quad fellowship for students from each of our Quad countries to pursue advanced degrees leading STEM programs here in the United States. It represents an investment in the leaders, innovators, and pioneers of tomorrow.
Prime Ministers of Australia and Japan also expressed their commitment to share ties and a free and open Indo-Pacific region.
We believe in a free and open Indo-Pacific because we know that's what delivers a strong, stable and prosperous region, so our citizens, our peoples, can realise their hopes and dreams for their futures in a liberal and free society. The Quad is about demonstrating how democracies such as ours, as you said, Mr. President, can get things done.
This event demonstrates the strong solidarity between our four nations and our unwavering commitment to the common vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific. The Quad is an extremely significant initiative by 4 countries who share fundamental values, cooperating for the cause of realizing a free and open international order based on the rule of law in the Indo-Pacific.
The first in-person summit-level Quad meeting marks a coming of age for the informal grouping. Frequent and regular high-level engagements will most likely be seen, and outcomes in areas like deeper cooperation on fighting climate change, cybersecurity, infrastructure development, and sharing of emerging technologies like 5G infrastructure will also materialize soon. Sudhakar Das in Washington DC for DD India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden held their first ever in-person bilateral meeting this morning. Delegation level talks were also held. Prime Minister Modi stressed on the importance of the third decade in bilateral ties between the two countries, saying the US leadership will certainly play an important role in how this decade is shaped. He added that seeds have been sown for an even stronger friendship between India and the US.
The first ever in-person meeting between Prime Minister and President of 2 of the world's oldest and largest democracies. The venue, White House. The host, President Joe Biden. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a warm welcome from President Joe Biden at the Oval Office. Both leaders hailed India-US ties and said they looked forward to beginning of a new chapter. Prime Minister Modi lauded President Biden's leadership, saying it will play a key role in shaping this decade. PM mentioned 4 T's: talent, technology, trade and trusteeship, and said both countries have the talent to leverage technology for greater global good.
दुनिया में सबसे ज़्यादा ड्राइविंग फोर्स बन रही है टेक्नोलॉजी। इस दशक में भारत और अमेरिका के रिश्तों में टेक्नोलॉजी और वो भी पूरी मानवता के लिए उपयोगी हो, उस दिशा में हमारी टैलेंट टेक्नोलॉजी को माध्यम से बहुत बड़ी सेवा कर सकती हैं और एक बड़ा अवसर हमें उपलब्ध होगा।
Prime Minister described President Biden's efforts on COVID-19, mitigating climate change and the Quad as noteworthy. US President Joe Biden remembered Mahatma Gandhi a week ahead of his birth anniversary on October 2nd, recalling the values advocated by the Apostle of Peace and non-violence, tolerance, respect and human trusteeship.
भारत और अमेरिका के बीच ट्रेड का अपना महत्व है और इस दशक में ट्रेड के क्षेत्र में भी हम एक दूसरे को काफी पूरक हो सकते हैं। बहुत सी चीजें हैं जो अमेरिका के पास है, जो भारत को जरूरत है, बहुत सी चीजें भारत के पास है जो अमेरिका के काम आ सकती हैं। तो ट्रेड भी इस दशक का एक बहुत बड़ा क्षेत्र रहेगा।
The 2 leaders also held delegation-level talks. PM said both countries were committed to democratic values and traditions.
21वीं शताब्दी के तीसरे दशक का ये पहला वर्ष, मैं पूरे दशक की तरफ देख रहा हूं कि आपके नेतृत्व में जो बीज हम बोएंगे, इस पूरा दशक हमारी दृष्टि से बहुत ही भारत और अमेरिका के संबंध में, विश्व के लोकतांत्रिक देशों के लिए एक बहुत ही ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव ये कालखंड रहेगा, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है।
US President Joe Biden recalled his long association with PM Modi, adding that India and the US are set to begin a new chapter in the history of bilateral ties, taking on some of the toughest challenges together.
And I think that's begun to come to pass. And today, we're launching a new chapter in the history of U.S.-Indian ties and taking on some of the toughest challenges we faced together, starting with a shared commitment to ending the COVID pandemic.
The meeting between the 2 leaders lasted for about an hour.
The partnership between India and the US is an enduring one, and it has a lot of room to grow as long as talent, trade, technology and trusteeship come together. And that is what was witnessed in the bilateral meeting, the first one between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden today at the White House. They talked about taking on challenges like COVID-19 and climate change and growing their relationship further into the future. With Cabinet Person Vinay Tiwari, this is Gautam Roy in Washington DC for DD India.
Amidst high-level exchanges, there were some lighter moments during Prime Minister Modi and President Biden's bilateral meeting. Here's more.
US President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Narendra Modi sharing a lighter moment. President Biden shared an anecdote from his India visit in 2014, during which he discovered he may have had ancestral ties with India.
When I was in Mumbai as Vice President, the Indian press asked me, do I have any relatives in India? I'm not sure, but when I was elected as a 29-year-old kid in 1972, before I was sworn in, I got a letter from a person named Biden, last name, in Mumbai, from Mumbai. The next morning I had a press conference going away, and the Indian press said, someone spoke up, you have 5 Bidens in India. I found out that there was a Captain George Biden who was a captain in the East Indian Tea Company. He apparently stayed and married an Indian woman.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi responded in his own style, saying he had done some hunting around and had brought along some documents related to Biden's surname that might help solve the mystery of Joe Biden's Indian roots.
आपने भारत में बाइडेन सरनेम के लोगों के सामने बड़ा डिटेल में जिक्र किया। आपने मेरे साथ भी इस बात का उल्लेख किया था। तो बाद में मैंने काफ़ी कुछ कागजात खोजने की कोशिश की है। कागजात में लेकर के भी आया हूँ। हो सकता है शायद उसमें से कुछ आगे का निकल आए, शायद आपको कुछ काम आए।
Some documents, maybe we'll be able to take this matter forward, and maybe those documents could be of use to you.
Are we related?
Yes.
Prior to this, the two leaders met in the year 2014 and 2016. Back then, Biden was performing the duties of Vice President. In the year 2014, when Prime Minister Modi visited America, Joe Biden had organized a special lunch for PM Modi. And after that, in the year 2016, Joe Biden hosted Prime Minister when he presided over the joint session of the Congress. Bureau Report, DD India.
Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, during a special media briefing in Washington, D.C., said that India and the U.S. underscored the importance of combating terrorism in Afghanistan during PM Modi and President Biden's bilateral meeting.
The two sides underscored the importance of combating terrorism in Afghanistan. They called on Taliban to adhere to these and all of its commitments under Resolution 2593. It also called upon the respect to human rights of women, children, minorities, provision of humanitarian assistance and access to humanitarian workers, and of course called upon the two sides to secure an inclusive political negotiated settlement in Afghanistan.
The Foreign Secretary said that both sides had agreed to work on the issue of terrorism.
Both sides agreed that the issue of terrorism was very important. Obviously, counter-terrorism efforts and cooperation between the two countries would be given a lot of emphasis. In that context, both sides denounced any use of terrorist proxies and emphasized the importance of denying logistical, financial or military support to terrorist groups which could be used to plan or launch terror attacks. They also noted that the US and India will be organizing a counter-terrorism joint working group meeting, a designations dialogue, and there was also going to be a renewed US-India Homeland Security dialogue in the areas of law enforcement and security.
Both leaders also discussed the defense relationship between the two countries.
President Biden reaffirmed the strength of the defense relationship an unwavering commitment to India as a major defense partner. The leaders welcomed deepening of advanced industrial cooperation in the defense sector. There was emphasis, as I said, on co-development, co-production, and expanding the area of industrial cooperation in the defense sector.
The Foreign Secretary said that Pakistan's role in Afghanistan is being closely watched by Quad countries.
There was very careful consideration by both sides on the support given to certain hardline elements in that country, including terrorist groups by certain neighbor of Afghanistan. I think there was a clear concern expressed in that regard on Pakistan's role in Afghanistan and their continuing support for a certain approach that did not seem to be conducive to the international community's expectations of what Afghanistan should be like. Pakistan's role on the issue of terrorism had to be kept. An important factor which sometimes gets overlooked when you see Pakistan projecting itself as a facilitator, whereas it has really been in many senses an instigator of some of the problems that we are dealing with in our neighborhood and beyond.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the United States will help enhance the manufacturing capacity of the Quad partnership to produce 1 billion vaccine doses by the end of 2022. She even stressed that the United States will need the help from the rest of the developed world to increase vaccine manufacturing capacity.
We have committed to give more, for every 1 dose here, we've committed to give 3 doses overseas. And we're also helping produce, add to manufacturing capacity. The Quad partnership to produce at least 1 billion vaccine doses by the end of 2022. We're also working to boost vaccine manufacturing in South Africa. But we need help from the rest of the developed world, and the rest of the developed world needs to also step up. We're going to continue to increase our role in contributing vaccines, contributing know-how, making sure that we are playing a constructive role in bringing an end to the pandemic.
And let's take a look at updates on COVID-19 from around the world. The global COVID-19 case tally has crossed the 23 crore mark. Over 23 crore, 18 lakh cases of COVID-19 have been recorded, while the recoveries stand at over 20 crore, 84 lakhs globally. Over 47,51,000 lives have been lost to the virus. With this, the United States continues as the worst hit nation so far, with over 4 crore 36 lakh cases reported, and the death toll amounting to in fact surpassing 7 lakh, with more than 7,05,000 people having lost their lives to the virus. Victoria in Australia notched up a new daily record of 847 locally acquired cases of COVID. Health officials have warned the public to stay home ahead of a major sporting event and expect case numbers to keep rising until mid-November. Vaccination rates have crossed 46%. However, Chief Health Officer of Victoria has warned fans to stay home ahead of the football grand final. Meanwhile, anti-vaccination protests that hit Melbourne spilled into the suburbs, with over 30 people arrested. Authorities are also concerned that the protests may fuel a worsening outbreak of the virus. Cuba has begun gradually reactivating its battered economy amid the coronavirus pandemic, following the announcement of the reopening of restaurants and cafes, an initial step to allow more tourist flights in November. Since Friday, the Cuban government allowed a group of establishments in 8 provinces, including Havana, to restart their services as part of a relaxation of their health protocols. Cuba aims to reduce contagion with a campaign to immunize more than 90% of its population with locally produced vaccines by November. But the coronavirus remains a significant problem for the Caribbean country as it has strained its health system. In Havana, 86.5% of the 2.2 million population has been vaccinated. More than 8.5 million people on the island have been immunized with at least one of Cuba's 3 doses of vaccines. According to official figures, Cuba has averaged 7,800 cases per day and 75 deaths in September, significantly decreased from August. However, it remains one of the highest rates in the world in terms of cases per 100,000 population. With many countries around the world laying emphasis on the importance of booster vaccines against COVID-19, in Britain, Margaret Keenan, the 91-year-old grandmother who became the first in the world to receive the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine outside of a trial, received her booster vaccine at University Hospital Coventry in England yesterday. Keenan got the jab alongside nurse May Parsons, who administered Keenan's first vaccine in December 2020. Britain reported about 35,623 new COVID cases and 180 more deaths within 28 days of a positive test. The figures compared to 36,710 cases and 180 deaths were recorded on Thursday. And an update on Spain's La Palma Cumbre Vieja volcanic eruption. Firefighters on the La Palma island had to retreat due to intensifying volcanic explosions. The lava has been oozing out of the volcano for 6 days now. A thick plume of smoke now extends 4 kilometers into the air, with a number of flights in and out of the airport cancelled. No fatalities have been reported so far. Volcanic activity increased on Friday, and Spanish media is reporting that a new vent has opened up, causing more lava to flow. Authorities have ordered the evacuation of towns of Tajuya, Tacando de Abajo and part of Tacande de Arriba that had not already been evacuated on Friday afternoon, with residents told to assemble at the local football ground. Canary Islands emergency services had initially told residents to stay indoors to avoid the dense cloud of ash and lava fragments, but later decided to evacuate due to the heightened risk from explosions. And now a look at U.S. stocks. In business news, the S&P 500 ended slightly higher on Friday after a volatile week, as gains in growth names like Facebook offset a dive by Nike after the athletic wear company delivered a downbeat sales forecast. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 33.18 points to 34,798. The S&P 500 gained 6.50 points to 4,455.48, and the Nasdaq Composite dropped 4.54 points to 15,047.70. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will deliver a video address at the event Global Citizen Live this evening. Global Citizen is a global advocacy organization that is working to end extreme poverty. Global Citizen Live is a 24-hour event which will be held today and tomorrow. The live events in major cities including Mumbai, New York, Paris, Rio de Janeiro, Sydney, Los Angeles, Lagos and Seoul will be broadcast in 120 countries and over multiple social media channels. Back home, the Union Public Service Commission announced the final results of the Civil Services Exams 2020 yesterday. A total of 761 candidates have been recommended for appointment. Shubham Kumar secured the top rank, followed by Jagriti Avasthi and Ankita Jain standing on the third rank. Taking to Twitter, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, Congratulations to those who successfully cleared the UPSC Civil Services examination. An exciting and satisfying career in public service awaits. Those who have cleared the exam will go on to have key administrative roles during an important period of our nation's journey. Further, addressing the aspirants who could not crack the exam, PM Modi tweeted, "To those young friends who did not clear the UPSC examination, I would like to say you are very talented individuals. There are more attempts awaiting. At the same time, India is full of diverse opportunities waiting to be explored. Best wishes in whatever you decide to do." Antyodaya Divas is observed every year on the 25th of September. This day has been given national importance in honor of late Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay to mark his birth anniversary. Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid tribute to Upadhyay via Twitter and tweeted, I quote, "Tribute to Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay ji, the pioneer of integral human philosophy. On his birth anniversary, he dedicated his life towards nation building. His thoughts will always inspire countrymen." Union Home and Cooperative Minister Amit Shah will address the country's first conference of cooperatives in New Delhi today. The conference aims to share the government's vision and outline the roadmap for development of the cooperative sector. Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur flagged off the second edition of Ultimate Ladakh Cycling Challenge 2021 in Leh. Amidst cheering, the Union Minister also took part in the event. The aim is to make people across the country aware about fitness and health. It was another step towards Fit India. The Sports Minister said that on the occasion of Amrit Mahotsav, the cycling challenge will motivate to indulge in more physical activities.
मोदी जी के मन में यही था कि भारत के युवाओं को और भारत की जनता में फिटनेस को लेकर जागरूकता लेकर आए। और मुझे खुशी इस बात की है कि 11,000 फीट से ज्यादा ऊंचाई पर भी लेह लद्दाख के हमारे युवा सुबह के 7 बजे से अपनी अपनी साइकिल्स लेकर खड़े हैं साइकिलिंग करने के लिए। ये अमृत महोत्सव के अवसर पर आजादी के 75 वर्ष मनाते हुए एक और देश में फिट इंडिया फ्रीडम रन चल रहा है, तो आप लोगों ने फिट इंडिया में साइकिलिंग चैलेंज को भी आगे बढ़ाने का काम किया है। उसके लिए भी मैं लद्दाख पुलिस को और आप सबको बहुत बहुत बधाई और शुभकामनाएं देता हूं।
And Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur yesterday inaugurated the first Himalayan Film Festival. The 5-day-long festival has been launched in order to promote tourism in Leh. The festival is a part of the celebrations of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The film festival will showcase talent across 12 Himalayan states and union territories. It was opened by the latest Bollywood blockbuster film Sher Shah. Bollywood actor Siddharth Malhotra also attended the star-studded inauguration ceremony. Let's take a look at this video to get a feel of the film festival.
पहला हिमालयन फिल्म फेस्टिवल लद्दाख की इस खूबसूरत वादियों में हो रहा है। एक ऐसी शुरुआत है जो आज़ादी के 75 वर्ष आज़ादी का अमृत महोत्सव जहां देश मना रहा है, वहीं पर लद्दाख की इन वादियों में पहला हिमालयन फिल्म फेस्टिवल की शुरुआत हुई है। यहां की प्रतिभाओं को कंटेंट क्रिएशन में, डायरेक्शन में, प्रोडक्शन में, एक्टिंग में, हर क्षेत्र में एक्सपोजर भी मिलेगा, अवसर भी मिलेंगे।
Basically, when we conceived of Himalayan Film Festival, the idea is that the societies in Himalaya should meet the world, the rest of the country on equal terms. They should project what is their culture, their heritage.
First Himalayan Film Festival to showcase Sher Shah
showcase Shersha, our film, and I think this is a lovely state with such lovely outdoors. We've shot here before, and definitely we need to come and celebrate movie making here. So a lot of the locals can enjoy it and the rest of the world. So thank you so much for having us here, and hope you guys enjoy Shersha.
Absolutely, I'm here for them. I'm here for people of Ladakh, and I just feel so privileged to be here. I'm from Kashmir. I am so thrilled that they are doing this. This is their first edition, and
I think it's a fantastic initiative. It should have happened much earlier, and I'm glad it's happened now. I think you're going to have very beautiful voices coming out of it, and it's a great place to have a film festival. So I think it's going to become a global film festival, and everybody's going to want to come.
जी समझिए ना, ये बिल्कुल एक नया चैप्टर खोल दिया है यूटी बनने के बाद। मैडम पद्मा और इंफॉर्मेशन डिपार्टमेंट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया DFF के साथ लद्दाख के हर बच्चों को जोड़ दिया।
And on to some other news stories. A look at the COVID-19 situation from across India. Vaccination coverage has crossed the landmark of 84 crores. It's 84.89 crores. Further, the recovery of 28,046 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3,28,76,319. Consequently, India's recovery rate stands at 97.78%. The recovery rate is currently at its highest peak since March 2020. 29,616 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. The active caseload is presently 3,01,442. Active cases account for less than 1% of total cases. The testing capacity also continues to expand. The last 24 hours saw a total of 15,92,421 tests being conducted. India has so far carried out over 56 crore 16 lakh cumulative tests, while testing capacity has been enhanced. Weekly positivity rate stands at 1.99%, less than 3% for the past 92 days now. The daily positivity rate is reported to be 1.86%. The daily positivity rate has remained below 3% for the last 26 days. Following a downward trend in coronavirus cases, national capital Delhi recorded 24 cases of COVID-19 in the past 24 hours with no deaths reported. Meanwhile, in Tamil Nadu, a total of 1,733 persons tested positive for COVID-19. On Friday, as per the official bulletin, Coimbatore topped the tally with 210 cases, followed by Chennai with 205 and Chengalpattu with 122. The total number of cases in Tamil Nadu as of September 24th stands at 26,53,848. 27 deaths were reported, taking the state's total tally to 35,454. 1,631 patients were discharged, taking the total number of recoveries in the state to 26,01,198. The Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, or CSIR, will be celebrating its 80th Foundation Day on Sunday. Dr. Shekhar Mande, DG CSIR, has said that the institute has come a long way from its inception and is very much in sync for the future as well. Our correspondent Tapas Bhattacharya spoke to Dr. Shekhar Mande in this exclusive interview.
CSIR is celebrating its 80th Foundation Day on Sunday, and I have with me DG CSIR himself to talk about this legacy. We have seen CSIR grow into a huge organization, a scientific body which has worked really hard during this pandemic. Your thought on that?
See, CSIR was formed before independence, 5 years before independence. So we are going to celebrate our 80th Foundation Day on 26th September. As you know, when India became independent, there were a large number of challenges that our society faced. And today, after 80 years, after 75 years of independence, what you see is that there are many countries who became independent around the same time. In Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa and all, in that period of about 5-10 years plus minus, India is the only country which has made a big difference to the world than compared to many other countries. And that's because one of the reasons is that we adopted a very strong science and technology policy. And the mantle of implementing that science and technology policy came upon CSIR. And we are very proud what CSIR did.
Prime Minister spoke about the fact that one has to be Atmanirbhar, and we have seen earlier there was a large chunk of government funding used to go to CSIR, but now that in the last few years we have seen CSIR labs, CSIR himself that has managed to get funding from private bodies, industries, and has actually managed to become Atmanirbhar. How do you see in the next 5 to 10 years CSIR planning out how do they go about it?
So as you correctly said, the concept of Atmanirbhar essentially is to make sure that India is self-reliant on every aspect of anything that what we do, and science and technology plays a very important role in this particular concept. Now, being ability to generate funds for what we want to do is another ability, and the pandemic once again offered a very good opportunity for generating even our own funds. And CSIR from its inception, from the time it began, has always worked very closely with industrial houses. Just to give you an example, to start some of the CSIR labs, in the initial years, funding was generously given by the Tata Trusts at that time. So we have always worked closely with industry. CIPLA's founder, Abdul Khwaja Hamid, was CSIR's governing body member for 20 years since CSIR's inception. So there's the connect of CSIR with other industries. And we have strengthened it further in the last few years. And industry is now coming forward in supporting our research more and more and more. And we see a great value of working together, the R&D as the public sees it in science and technology, and its applications via industry, so that these solutions can be taken to society, which is our common denominator or the stakeholder for all of us together. One other major concept when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat is also the futuristic areas. See, today we can become Atmanirbhar in whatever we are using and generate those technologies to become Atmanirbhar. But technologies are not static. They're always going to change. And in the coming years, we are going to get newer and newer technologies. And it is important that we keep up pace with developing those technologies as well. So therefore, it is important that we actually work on very futuristic areas. And CSIR has already undertaken, we have done technology mapping, and the areas we think which are very important for future, we have already started work with the right earnest.
Appreciate your time. So that was DG CSIR Shekhar Mande, who's telling us that technology is changing, the future is there in front of them, and CSIR is working hard to make sure India becomes really an Atmanirbhar country. With camera person Rajesh Shukki, this is Taposh Bhattacharya, DD India, Delhi.
And next, let's talk about the Saubhagya scheme launched on the 25th of September 2017. It's exactly 2 years since the scheme was instituted, with the aim of achieving 100% electrification of all rural households in India. Prime Minister Modi had launched the scheme, which in detail is the Pradhan Mantri Sehaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana or Saubhagya scheme. The scheme completes 4 years with a focus to create basic electricity infrastructure in villages. It also outlays the strengthening of the existing infrastructure with distribution of transformers to improve quality and reliability of power supply in rural areas. We tell you more in this report about the scheme that has completed 4 years.
सहज बिजली हर घर योजना यानी कि सौभाग्य योजना के तहत सरकार देश के हर ऐसे घर, चाहे वो गांव में हो या शहर में हो या झुग्गी झोपड़ी में हो, दूर दराज वाले इलाके में हो, उस घर को बिजली कनेक्शन से जोड़ने का आज हम संकल्प करके आगे बढ़ते हैं.
The centre's flagship scheme Pradhan Mantri Sehaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana Saubhagya was launched on the occasion of birth centenary celebration of Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay on 25th September of 2017, with the aim to provide energy access to all by last mile connectivity and electricity connections to all remaining unelectrified households. Scheme works to ease lives of unprivileged section. The government pledged to provide uninterrupted power supply to over 18,000 villages where there was no direct connection. After providing electricity to every village, the Modi government took the initiative to illuminate every house through the Saubhagya scheme. The total outlay of the project is rupees 16,320 crores to fulfill the ambitious target of providing electricity to every household. A remarkable progress was made in a record 18 months. On March 31, 2019, states informed that except 18,734 houses in Naxal-affected areas, the country achieved electrification of 262.84 lakh households. Additional 19.09 lakh households were electrified, which were unwilling earlier to get electrified. So far, the scheme has benefited more than 2 crore 81 lakh houses. Free connections were provided to poor families.
2 साल पहले मेरी घर में बिजली नहीं था, तब बहुत परेशान में रहता हूँ, लेकिन 2 साल बाद जब बिजली आया तब बहुत फायदा हुआ।
जब से गवर्नमेंट ने ये स्कीम लॉन्च की सौभाग्य वाली, तब से हमारे घरों में रोशनी आई है। इससे पहले हमें मोमबत्तियां जलानी पड़ती थी और बच्चे वगैरह सब उनको परेशानी होती है लिखने पढ़ने में, या कोई काम करता था शालाबाफी का काम या और कोई काम, उनको भी दिक्कत होती थी।
Along with power connections, the scheme will provide subsidy on equipments such as transformers, wires and meters. Access to electricity will have a positive impact on quality of life of people in all aspects of daily household chores and human development. With Bureau Report, DD India.
And Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur inaugurated a number of high-powered transmitters at the world's highest radio station in Hambatingla in Kargil of Jammu and Kashmir. He also took stock of the transmitter station at an altitude of 13,300 feet from mean sea level. Each 10 kilowatt high-power transmitters of All India Radio FM radio station and Doordarshan will improve transmission and the reach in the region, especially in Kargil and Batalik sectors. With the inauguration of the highest elevated transmitters, people in the mountainous region would get better quality services of AIR and DD. The new transmitters are part of the government's efforts to improve information reach to the public, especially to border villages in Ladakh. In today's episode of Saga of Freedom, we pay tribute to the great freedom fighter Prafulla Chandra Sen and former Deputy Prime Minister of India, Chaudhary Devilal.
In today's episode, we will bring you the story of the great freedom fighter Prafulla Chandra Sen, who spent over 10 years in various jails between 1930 to 1942 for anti-British activities.
Today, the 25th of September, marks the death anniversary of a man who was a die-hard nationalist. Prafulla Chandra Sen always remained committed to Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of grassroots democracy and a self-reliant rural economy. He also served as the Chief Minister of West Bengal from 1962 to 1967.
Sen was born in village Senhati in Khulna district of Bengal on 10th April 1897. After graduating, he wanted to move to England for higher studies. But his ambitions changed after hearing Mahatma Gandhi's speech in 1920. Influenced by Gandhi's speech, Sen abandoned his plans of studying abroad and joined Mahatma's call for mass non-cooperation movement against the British.
In 1923, Sen moved to Arambagh in the Hooghly district, which became his laboratory for Gandhian experiments on Swadeshi and Satyagraha. Arambagh was an underdeveloped and malaria-infested area of Bengal where Sen worked hard for its betterment. For his efforts, Sen was affectionately called the Gandhi of Arambagh. He was elected to the Bengal Assembly from Arambagh in 1944 and was deputy leader of the opposition.
In 1948, he was inducted by then Chief Minister Dr. Bidhan Chandra Roy into the West Bengal cabinet as Minister of Agriculture. After Roy's death in 1962, Sen became West Bengal's third Chief Minister. To his last, he remained a bachelor with an undemanding, selfless and principled lifestyle. Sen died in Kolkata on 25th September 1990, but his conviction towards the society is a lesson for all of us. India is forever indebted to the selfless service and sacrifice of freedom fighters like Prafulla Chandra Sen.
Today, we are also celebrating the birth anniversary of freedom fighter and former Deputy Prime Minister of India, Chaudhry Devilal. He also served as the Chief Minister of Haryana. He was born on this day in 1914 in Tejakhera village of Sirsa district in Haryana to Shugna Devi and Lekram Sehag. A follower of Mahatma Gandhi, he was merely 15 years old when he was drawn towards the independence movement. As a 16-year-old, he participated in a demonstration by Lala Lajpat Rai in 1928.
His participation in the Satyagraha movement in the 1930s and the Quit India campaign during World War II led to his imprisonment on several occasions and put an end to his formal schooling. A true Gandhian, Devilal worked vigorously throughout his life to advance the cause of farmers and other rural people, as well as so-called low castes.
Popularly known as Tau, Devilal knew the pulse of the masses and continued his activism on behalf of farmers after the independence of our nation.
As Chief Minister of Haryana, Devilal made several decisions benefiting farmers and rural people. He died on 6th April 2001 at the age of 85. Devilal remained committed to the cause of farmers till the end of his life. We salute the spirit and love for the nation of this great freedom fighter.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of News on the Hour. We hope you enjoyed our show. Meanwhile, news and updates continue on DD India. So do stay tuned. Keep watching DD News. Namaskar.